Good morning and welcome to Coffee with Bann. Today's brew is Versanto Cafe Vanilla Biscotti. And today's topic? The 3DS. It's the 3DS. I like that. It's lovely. I do get a little bit of vanilla in there. I don't know what biscotti tastes like. But it does kind of give the vibe of a pastry kind of thing, I guess. I like it. Now, the Nintendo 3DS. This is my personal 3DS XL. I couldn't find my original 3DS in time. I really love the 3DS XL. The 3DS. I love that family of consoles. There are like 6 of them. Actually, no, there just straight up are 6 different models. There's the original 3DS, there's the 3DS XL, bigger screens, bigger controls for bigger gamers. There's the 2DS right here, which is a slab. There's the new 3DS, surprisingly uncommon in America. Nobody wanted the smaller one, I guess. There's the new 3DS XL, and there's the new 2DS XL, which I also have one of those. Somewhere. Hi, Macbeth. Hey, buddy. You here to join me on my talk about the 3DS? I guess I've got a cat on me. So, the 3DS is... Darn it! Macbeth is distracting me now. So the 3DS came out in 2011 for, I want to say, $230, and nobody wanted it at that price. How times change. Within a few months, Nintendo was like, wait, this isn't selling. Crap, what do we do? Crap, what do we... What? How isn't it selling? Everybody wants 3D, everybody wants DS, what? Oh. Okay. Slash the price. Went down to $170, I want to say. Thing is, I was like 7. I was like 7 when it came out, so I don't really know much about that time other than what Scott the Woz tells me. Or like, what other YouTubers have I watched that actually talk about the 3DS? I don't know, whatever. 3DS came out at a time when 3D was just starting to make its big resurgence. Not just starting, it was in the middle of its big resurgence. And like, everybody wanted 3D just because Avatar came out. And they're like, oh, this is neat. Turns out nobody really cared that much about always having 3D, they just wanted it to be a quick stop in at the movie theater for like an hour and a half and then they're done. This 3D really was just a novelty most of the time. Anyway, getting off topic a little bit, I need to actually talk about the 3DS. Crap. So the 3DS is something that I do have history with, but not from the very beginning. I didn't really know much about the 3DS until the 2DS came out, because like, I was just starting to learn about anything actually Nintendo around that time. And when the 2DS was announced, was like a few days after I decided that I would start calling the original DS the 2DS, because, you know, it wasn't in 3D. And then they're like, nope, 2DS. Oh. Anyway. Man, I had so much I could have talked about last night, and now I just don't remember any of it. 3DS. I guess let's just start talking about games, because... Oh wait, no. Right. So, the 2DS... My mom got one probably February of 2014. I think it was a Mother's Day gift from, like, everybody in the family or something, and it was cool. She played a lot of Pokemon Y. She still has that copy with a completed Pokedex and everything. I remember being allowed to play on it occasionally. It was very fun. Macbeth thinks so, too. But probably around 2015? Like Christmas 2015 or so, I got, or my family got, a 2DS for us kids. It was in blue instead of red. This isn't it, unfortunately. That is a story for in a little bit. Got a blue 2DS, and we all absolutely adored that thing. But me in particular. Before that, I did have a copy of Animal Crossing New Leaf. That was like the only 3DS game that I had ever gotten at the time. And got it for $30 down at Hastings. Does anyone remember Hastings? I miss Hastings. It's like my favorite place to get anything that I could. They had the Hardback Cafe. Oh man, I miss them, man. I went bankrupt probably 2016. Okay, bye, Macbeth. Anyway, I got a copy of Animal Crossing New Leaf in 2015 before we got the family 2DS. And so I would just play it on my mom's 2DS. And it was so much fun. Like, you have no idea just how much fun is contained in this little Cheez-It of a cartridge. This also isn't my, my childhood copy of New Leaf that got lost. Very sad. I really want to find that. Anyway. So, we got the 2DS. And that was my first experience with an online shop, really. It was my first experience with, right. For my birthday in probably 2016, I got a copy of Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. Also not my childhood copy. I'm very, very bad with keeping track of things. No, actually, this one is not the same. Whatever. I guess it's time to talk about that. In around November of 2016, I brought the sort of family 2DS to school because I really wanted to play it at the video game club. And I had done this a couple of times before. This time was different though, because on the way back I realized, wait, it's not in my pocket. Where did it go? Wait, crap, no, where is it? No! I walked back to school, retracing my steps, trying to find it, and nothing. It wasn't anywhere. I was crying by the time I got back to school because I knew I would be in massive trouble, and I knew that we couldn't replace it. Not only did it have a lot of childhood memories, well, I say childhood memories as though they weren't at least somewhat fresh at the time. Not only did it have a lot of memories, we didn't have the money to replace it. And that was such a mistake. Bringing it to school that day was such a mistake. I still miss that thing. I wish that I could find it with the original data intact, but that's not how that works. It's not gonna happen. Anyway, I had my copy of Pokemon Alpha Sapphire in there at the time, and it went missing alongside it. So, you know, I don't have that either. Anyway, all of this is to say, I clearly loved the 3DS/2DS at the time, and I still do. It has a fantastic selection of games. The UI is very, just nice. I very like it. It's mostly just a simple grid, but it had an internet browser. I mean, the DS and DSi both also had internet browsers. Shut up, notification. I don't appreciate you. But, like, this one was slightly better. The DS one was a cartridge, because, you know, the DS didn't have any inbuilt storage or anything. The DSi one was, crap. And I mean, so was the DS one. Big shocker. The 3DS one is slightly less crap. At the time, it could even load websites and images. Anyway. So I lost my 3DS, I think, before the new 3DS existed. Or I lost my 2DS before the new I lost my 2DS before the new 3DS existed. I think. I'm pretty sure. I would have to check, and I don't have an internet-capable device other than the 3DS, which I'm not even sure can still load Google at this point. I'm afraid I've got some bad news, boys. It's dead. It's gone, man. Anyway, I'm just gonna talk about the games now, because I do love the games. There's, obviously, Animal Crossing New Leaf, and Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and Pokemon Y. Those are, like, the main games that I played back then. There was also... there were a good few Pokemon games. Pokemon X and Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, Sun and Moon, and Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. And you can't forget about the Virtual Console. That was the first time they ever re-released Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, and Green in Japan. And they also re-released Gold, Silver, and Crystal in, like, 2017 or 2018. That was certainly a choice. Anyway. And the Virtual Console is where I first experienced those first-generation games. Sort of. I had a copy of Leaf Green for a little while. We won't talk about how I obtained it. Not here, anyway. But I didn't play a whole lot of it there. I did get through a good chunk of Pokemon Yellow on the 2DS. One of the first things I ever bought in the eShop, I think. Alongside Darts Up 3D and a couple of DSiWare games. Okay, so, Pokemon, I love it. I think Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are probably some of the best of the series. And those were on 3DS, so immediately a good reason to have a 3DS. They're Animal Crossing. I think... No, wrong cartridge. I genuinely think that Animal Crossing New Leaf is the best in the series. I have changed my mind from Wild World before. Wild World is, in some ways, my favorite, but that's mostly out of nostalgia. New Leaf is just the best. It's got the best sort of combination of villager interactions and just regular gameplay. And I think it's just the most interesting overall. But I've talked at length about Animal Crossing already. So, oh yeah, the 3DS was also home to a lot of ports. Kind of surprising, honest. No, not surprising. I don't... The 3DS was home to a lot of ports. You'd get Wii games, Wii U games, GameCube games sometimes. You know, you had Luigi's Mansion for 3DS, which actually dates back to what they originally wanted to do with the GameCube. They wanted to have a 3D screen for the GameCube, and they did test it with Luigi's Mansion. Unfortunately, it was cost prohibitive at the time, so they couldn't really do that. But then they finally fulfilled that, like, 100-year-old childhood dream. And put Luigi's Mansion, the original game, ported it to 3DS. And it's neat. It's certainly a port of Luigi's Mansion. I haven't played a whole lot of it. I haven't played a whole lot of the original, but from my understanding, it's good. They had Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, which was the Wii game without the motion controls, but locked at 30 FPS. Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. Yoshi and Poochie's Yoshi and Poochie's Woolly World. Super Mario Maker for 3DS. I don't know if I talked about Mario Maker on the Wii U episode. I should have if I didn't. Make your own Mario levels. That is dope. That's awesome. And they put it on 3DS, and you couldn't upload levels from the 3DS version onto Nintendo servers, so it was kind of useless. You could play levels that were uploaded from the Wii U version, but, like, why? The 3DS... Oh, wait! There's more software, too! They're like... There was Mii Plaza, which just had some cute little Mii-based games, if I recall correctly. There was, Face Raiders, which came with each and every 3DS. It was a very basic... Would you call it a first-person shooter? Sort of? It was an AR game. Not to be confused with AR games on the 3DS. Face Raiders, you use the camera, and you shoot balls at floating faces, basically. It was cute. It was neat. It was something to do if you got a 3DS without any games. But there were Mario games, you know, New Super Mario Bros. 2, of course it was going to have a new Soup game. There was Super Mario 3D Land, which is a new Soup game in 3D. Still pretty good, don't get me wrong, but, like, that's what it is. Right! Right! So, topically, Tomodachi Life. Tomodachi Life started on the DS as Tomodachi Collection, but that was only in Japan. In everywhere else, we got Tomodachi Life for the 3DS, and it was a lot of fun. It was just a little, like an advanced Tamagotchi game, basically. And, I enjoy it. I do quite enjoy it, and I am excited for the sequel coming out on Switch soon. On the 17th, and today's, what, the 11th? I think? So we're getting close. As far as my favorite series, Sonic the Hedgehog, it didn't really deliver a whole lot. Well, no, it had some Sonic games. They just weren't that good. So, it had Sonic Generations, which is not the same as the HD version. It is 2D only, developed by Dimps, because Dimps. Sega loves Dimps. Had different levels, and worse level design. Had technically more accurate classic Sonic physics than the modern, or than the HD version of the game, but at the same time, they still felt stiff and not great. It had Sonic Lost World, which was the only fully 3D Sonic game made by Dimps, and that was... It's a different experience to the HD version, which came out on Wii U. Completely different level design, same story though. And the levels, while good, should have been split up into like 3 or 4 per level. Like, each level should have been split into like 4 levels. They get long. Half an hour is insane for a Sonic level. Especially one on a handheld. If I'm pulling this thing out of my pocket to play a game, I'm not pulling it out so that I can just lay on the couch playing a game for like 4 or 5 hours straight. I'm pulling it out because I want to play a level or two and then go back to whatever I was doing elsewhere. Handhelds are meant to pull out and just play for a little bit. They're not meant for gigantic experiences like that, usually. And I mean, don't get me wrong, you can have them, but don't expect players to play for hours on end. With the exception of Ocarina of Time 3D. A remake of one of the most beloved games of all time, and supposedly Ocarina of Time is getting another remake for Switch 2. We'll see if that actually happens. People have been talking about it, though. But it's a remake of one of the most beloved games of all time for a console that was not poorly received. Like, I guess the N64 wasn't super poorly received, but like, it did not get a whole lot to it. And, okay, so, Ocarina of Time 3D is the better Ocarina of Time, assuming we're not counting unofficial PC ports. If we're counting unofficial PC ports, Ship of Arcinian. There's also Open Ocarina of Time, and I haven't heard anything from that in years. But Ocarina of Time 3D is better overall than the N64 version. It has better graphics, significantly cleaner graphics, despite the resolution being very similar, actually. Like, a lot of the texture files are very similar in resolution, they just look better. And it runs at 30 FPS instead of, like, 20 or lower. And I think it plays a little bit better. I'll be honest, I'm not that much of a Zelda fan. I've beaten Breath of the Wild, I've played through most of Tears of the Kingdom, and I've gotten maybe a quarter of the way through Wind Waker. So, I can't really tell you that much on the specifics, but I know that Ocarina of Time 3D is better, in my opinion, from what I have experienced of it, than the N64 version. And then Majora's Mask 3D. Oh golly, Majora's Mask 3D. That one is, how do I put this, not as good. They made a bunch of changes that made the game overall less unique than the original, and ruined the Molduga fight, I think. The Twin Molduga, whatever. They ruined a boss. At least one. And they messed with mechanics without changing the world design, and it wasn't as good. You know, there was also a unique Zelda game for 3DS. At least one. I can think of two. There might have been more. And I can think of two. There was The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, which was a sequel to A Link to the Past. And I remember my brother Kovar really liking that one. But then again, I also thought that he was very familiar with Link's Awakening, and I was wrong about that, apparently, so I don't know what to trust anymore. But there was A Link Between Worlds, and then there was Triforce Heroes, which was a weird spin-off thing where you control 3 links, sort of like 4 swords, but like not, but yes, but no, but it was co-op, and it... Okay, I'm getting off track. Got Minecraft, because everything had to have Minecraft. Everything still has to have Minecraft. We get, somebody has ported Minecraft to the Wii. Sort of. I guess it's more of a remake than a port, but like, whatever. The 3DS, the new 3DS specifically, got Minecraft, which I guess now is as good a time as any to talk about the difference between a 3DS and a new 3DS. The 3DS was the original that came out. The new 3DS was a version that had extra shoulder buttons and the C... what do I call it? It's certainly not a stick. The C nipple. It had a quote-unquote C-stick, which was just that, like, Lenovo mouse nub thing, right? That comes on Lenovo ThinkPad laptops. And it's kind of neat, but I hate it, and I think everybody else does too. And the new 3DS also had more power and face tracking 3D, so that you didn't have to look right at it exactly at the right angle the entire time in order to play games in 3D. You could, you know, move a little bit. And, that's nice. But because it was more powerful, there were a few games that were only available on new 3DS and not original 3DS. Like Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, I think it was called. It's just a port of Xenoblade Chronicles for new 3DS only. And Minecraft for new Nintendo 3DS. Or Minecraft New Nintendo 3DS Edition. Which was certainly a version of Minecraft. I'll say that. As far as Virtual Console goes, SNES games. They were only available on new 3DS. They could have made it available on original 3DS. I know that they could have. They just didn't. I can understand why they didn't, but like, they could have put... It would have been a lot of optimization. And they just decided it wasn't worth it. And I'm fine with that, but like, they could have. And yes, there is homebrew. There is homebrew for 3DS that lets you play SNES games on an original 3DS, but it does not perform nearly as well as Nintendo's official emulator for it. Oh, right! There's also the fact that the 3DS was backward compatible. And, you could play DS games on it. And that, honestly, is really cool. Unfortunately, because the 3DS has a somewhat bigger screen and higher resolution than the original DS, it stretches it. Or not stretches, but like, it scales it, and not super well. It looks a bit blurry. But when starting a DS game, you can always just hold select when starting it. Or start. You can hold either, and it will run it at the original resolution, which will be very small on an original model 3DS. On a new 3DS, it's actually about the same size as the 3DS screen. But anyway, it could play original DS games, and that is pretty cool, I think. Fun fact, it could also play GBA games. Nintendo did not want to release GBA games for Virtual Console on it, but they did it anyway, but they didn't, but they did, but they didn't. If you bought an original 3DS in the launch window, like before they cut the price, you would get an Ambassador 3DS, right? And it would give you access to 10 free NES games and 10 free Game Boy Advance games. I guess not free, since you're basically paying for them through, you know, paying $230 for it. They did eventually make the NES games available for sale on the eShop, but the Game Boy Advance games were never sold. On 3DS, that is. You were able to get Game Boy Advance games on Wii U. I don't know why, though. Nintendo, for some reason, said that Game Boy Advance games never got running in a way that they liked on 3DS. Then why release them anyway? You don't sell them, but you'll give them away for free? Sort of. Ish. Since people are getting up, it appears that it is about time for me to end this. So, moral of the story is, the new 3DS XL in particular is terrible visually and will always do this. And it's awful. And this has been Coffee with Bann.